Alright, we're back. I left off talking about this study stick. And I apologize. I made sure I had fresh batteries, but I didn't make sure I had a fresh SD card in the camera. It said it was full after 10-12 minutes or whatever. But anyway, let's go back into it. This is where we're at. We're starting out with a 2x2x4. 2 inches, 2 inches, 4 inches. And again, we don't need that many tools. We only need a few tools, and primarily we need a knife, we need a gouge, and we need a V-tool. What I like to do is start at the top, work my way down. And so all I'm going to do is cut off my lines. And I'm just going to follow that line as much as possible. Not worried about rounding it yet. Just worried about getting to that point where I'm giving the shape of the hat. I'm going to cut in right there because that's where the ball is going to be. And then I'm just going to cut right up to that and follow those lines. Carving a little differently than I normally do. I normally carve in my lap or right up close to me, but I'm carving so that you can see what I'm doing. And again, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you how I do it, how I get to that point. Okay? And so I'm just going to spend a little bit of time rounding the top of that head. I'll round some more because I don't want it pointed. I don't want it too flat as well. But I'm also going to take off some more a little bit later. It just depends on what it looks like when I get into it. Because a lot of these things are just kind of, it talks to you. In other words, it says I need a little more curve right here. I need a little more bend. I need a little more taken off. And you'll know that after you've done several of them. Okay? I'm going to take a V-tool, and I don't need a big V-tool. Don't need a big one. This is, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch. Looks like it's a 60. Hard to tell. I don't know what the numbers are. I just buy the ones I want and look at it. I want to outline this ball on the end of the hat. Call it a ball, call it a tassel. I don't know. I know there's an official name for it, but I'm not versed enough in it to know. I'm just going to outline that with a V-tool, and then I'm going to come back in here with my knife, and I'm going to stop cut right in that groove. So that groove is right there, and I'm just going to follow all around my cut lines and just make sure that I've deepened around that ball. Okay? Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to relieve that stop cut that I made. And there's going to be some places where you're going to have to cut deeper. Take a little bit more off that bottom right there because I didn't really get that cut very well. My best bet when I'm doing these is to kind of cut away from the ball. The ball's here. I don't want to really go straight down a whole lot. I want to cut away because I'm going to round away. And because of the way the grain is running, the grain on this particular project is running from top to bottom or bottom to top. If I go straight in, it may have a tendency as I'm carving to break off more of that ball than I want. And so I'm just going to trim that ball right there. Some of that ball. Trim the hat up to match it. Okay, I haven't taken off a whole lot here because I don't need a whole lot of wood off right there. I will later. We'll get into it and we'll round that. We'll have some fun. Now I want to outline the bottom of the hat band or whatever you want to call it and the top of that. I'm just going to do that with a V-tool, and all I'm doing is taking off the line. So I've drawn a line there. So when I use my V-tool, I want to stay right in the middle of that line. So go straight up that line and take that line off with your tool. Do the same thing with the bottom. Those of you that have followed me, you notice I've switched from a green background to a white background. I had an extra piece of this melamine left over when I took down some shells. I'm trying it to see if you get a better picture with a white background or if you get the dark green background, the artist matte that I had. I'm not sure yet. I'll look at them on the computer, and if they're not any good, we'll throw them away and we'll start all over with a new set of videos, but I'm hoping these will come out. Okay, so I've got the stop cuts cut in right here with my V-tool. And I know that I'm going to bring the beard up like that, so I know that a lot of this is going to come off, but I want to start rounding this hat. I like to round the hat to set the tone for everything, because Santa's Jolly Hat is one of those things where you look at it, you see one of those Santa hats, and even if it's not Santa wearing it, if it's a friend of yours, it just brings a smile to your face to see somebody wearing a hat. You know, they're really getting into the spirit of wearing that little red hat. Whether you've got one of the cheap ones that you get that don't last more than one season, or if you've spent a little bit of money on a velvet lined one and it's pretty and all that, it just brings a smile to your face. So all I'm doing is trying to round the front of this carving. I was looking to see, it looked like there was a split in the wood right there, and I'm hoping that isn't, but it might be just a surface split. But that's sometimes what you get when you're working with imperfect materials like wood. There's a lot of things you just can't control, and it's got to be, you just got to learn to go with it. You can't fight a lot of those things. So all I'm doing is really just relieving the hat so that it's going to have some round shape to it. And I'm just going to take it all the way down to the top of that hat band. I ought to look that up to find out what that word is for the ball and for the hat band. I'll bet there's an official word for it, and I just don't know what it is because I haven't bothered looking it up yet. So feel free to turn off the sound if you don't want to listen to me talk, but I'm just telling you what I'm doing. It isn't anything fancy. It's just removing wood and giving it the impression of rounding so far. I usually talk about my tools, and I haven't talked much about them in this video. I'm using a knife made by a friend of mine. We had a contest at one of our last club meetings before COVID hit us, and I won first place, and this is the knife that I got. And it's a nice little knife. I like it. It's about an 1.5-inch blade. I want to say it's a Denny blade, but I really don't know. I didn't ask the guy who made it. I'm using a Drake V-tool, and I'll use another size Drake V-tool a little bit later. This will allow me to get some deeper cuts. I've got a Pinewood Forge Harley Repsol style knife. It's thicker and longer and wider from the back to the cutting edge. I like this one simply because it really fits my hand really well. And I'm using a couple of gouges. There may be other tools that I pull out, and I'll show you those later. This is a file gouge. If those of you have ever bought file, you know they're Swiss made. You know the metal is just excellent. You also know that if you screw it up, it's hard to get those things perfect. Again, simply because the metal is a little bit harder. Same with this 2x. This 2x makes some really great tools, and I really enjoy using this one. This was a fishtail, not a fishtail gouge, just as a gouge, 180. It's a number 9. I think it says the number 11 here, but number 9 or number 11, both of these are, I think this one's a 9 file. So they both do smaller versions of the same thing, but those are the primary tools that we're going to be using here. And I switch back and forth sometimes. I'll notice when I'm carving, sometimes you'll see a scratch in your wood and you say, oh, I don't know where that came from. Well, if you have more than a few knives, you can just switch back and forth. You don't have to stop and strop all the time. I like to strop when it's time to strop, which means I have about 4 or 5 tools on the table that I've set aside that need to be stropped, straightened out, fixed, whatever they need to be done. So we got a nice little round to that hat. It's not perfect because I'm going to take a little bit more off of this side. I'll take a little bit more off of this side, but it's got me where I wanted to go so far. I'm going to trim a little bit of this down so that I outline that ball. Ball sticks out now. And come back here and take a little bit more out to my line. And then what we'll do is we'll now separate just a little bit of that hat. I like to clean up as I go. Sometimes I'm not able to, but I like to clean up as I go. It saves me a lot of time down the road at the end if I've got to sit there and piddle, play, and putter with cleaning up all the little chips that I left in there and all the little fuzzies. If you've ever had to do that, you know what I'm talking about. That's where you're sitting there trying to carve, you're trying to get those things out, and it just can be a rabbit hole that you can slide right down. It'll take you a long time to sit there and do this. So it's a lot better if you can. I realize some people can't. Their hands are not as strong, or they're not as, eyesight is not as good, or for whatever reason, some folks have a hard time. It's okay. You can go back and do them later. It just means you got to spend a little bit more time on it. And this is one of those things where, as long as you're not a production carver, you don't have to turn out 50 of these a day. I know a lot of people love doing things for friends and family, and they do carvings, but you don't have to sit here and worry about how long it takes. It takes what it takes, and it takes the time that you need to spend the time to make a good product. If I would give you a piece of advice, and that was one of the questions that came up on the Let's Talk Carving Facebook page. Some fella says, what's the piece of advice that I would give that anybody would give now that you wish you had at the beginning? And for me, it would be slow down, take it easy, and enjoy the carving. When I first started carving, I thought, I like doing this, and I want to do that too, but I also want to, sell, and I want to be a full-time carver, and it's hard to do that. But I was in a hurry. And so a lot of my carvings sometimes show that, but sometimes I was just in a hurry, and I didn't take the time to enjoy what I learned is called wabi-sabi. And I know I've mentioned this once or twice before, but the concept of wabi-sabi comes from the Japanese notion that everything in life is imperfect, unfinished, and you need to enjoy the process, because it doesn't matter how perfect it is if you're losing what you want in the process. And for me, carving is a relaxing thing. Although I do a lot of carving, I sell a lot of carvings, and I teach classes both locally and other places. I enjoy doing it, and I'm learning to enjoy the slow down method, meaning I don't have to hurry through and do this thing in 5 minutes and then move on to another one and then another one and another one. I'm just trying to learn the fine art of having fun. So if you saw me turn that around, I'm trimming that down. So I'm getting that down to where I don't have this part of the brim sticking out real far. And I just want to trim that down. We'll come back and we'll round that, and then we'll add some details to it. But I want to put my stop cut in the bottom of this groove as well, and the bottom of that groove as well. And I just want to take a little bit of wood off, because I want to separate that bottom of the hat, because that's going to separate where the beard is, where the face is, where the eyebrows are, and everything else that I need to add to it. I just recently got a new computer. My old computer would take 45 minutes to an hour to load a 10-minute video, so I'm hoping this one will be able to do it a little bit quicker. So I'm going to stretch this video out to about 20 or 25 minutes, just whenever I feel like it's a good place to stop. Supper's coming on here in a little bit, and I don't want to carve through supper. I don't look like I've missed many meals, but I don't want to miss any. I may not have missed any all the time, but I don't want to miss a whole lot more. I really enjoy my food, as most of you do. So I got a good idea on this, getting this thing going. And well, beep you heard was my phone. I don't know who's calling me, but don't bother me while I'm busy. Anyway, we're going to round this face a little bit. I don't want to go up to the lines that I've drawn yet, because it may not need to. I may not need to thin it out that much. But I'm gonna just trim a little bit out. Take off that bottom edge there, right up that line. Same thing here, right up that line. And so now you got an idea. Whoop, we got some square corners on there that don't look good in the beard. So let's round those off just a little bit. Then a bit more there. So now you get an idea of what that looks like. We haven't talked about the nose much, haven't done much with the nose, haven't even started on it. Made some marks in there that we'll come up to, but you can tell that's going to be a Santa. You can tell what it is, what it's going to be, and what it's going to look like, or at least I can. All right, from here on out, I'm going to carve this corner off. So in order to make sure I've got the center line, let's go ahead and draw that in. I didn't do that at the beginning, mainly because I've done enough of these things. But you got a center line, so everything should be somewhat symmetrical to that. I'm going to say this is the top of the eye socket, and roughly we'll have a bottom of the eye socket depending on how you do. Whether you want him smiling, laughing, eyes closed, or whatever, that's entirely up to you. Santa generally has a big bulbous nose as well, and so I'm going to leave some room for a kind of a big rounded nose out here, right under his mustache, wherever that's going to be. So here's what we're going to do. We're at 15 minutes. I've got about 5 more minutes and we'll close this one up. Let me make a mark in here that I can cut on for the eyebrows. So that's the top of the eye socket. Not going to go too deep because I don't want you to go too deep. I don't want you to do that just yet, because until after you've done a few of these, or if you've done some Santas, go right ahead. But this is easy for me to take a little bit of wood off to show you than it is for me to take a lot off. I hear a lot of people that say, I watch YouTube videos and I can't see where the person's hand is, and I can't see what kind of cut they made, and I can't see what they're doing. And so I'm trying to make it as easy for everybody as I can. It's all right here, it's all right below the camera. It's not too far, not too close, but we're close. I notice got a lot of room in the camera so we can zoom in a little bit more. Now from here, I'm going to make my nose cut, the bottom of the nose. And so if this is my eye center line right here, and here's my eyes here, somewhere here, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a big bulbous nose. Also know that you can make it shorter, you can't make it longer. So if I make the cut here, that means I'm removing a piece of wood down here. I can't add it back. I can make it a shorter nose, but I can't make it any longer without moving the entire face back. So I don't like to do that. These ones are kind of neat. I didn't show you what I do on the back of them. I trim the back of them out. I scoop that back out because it removes a little bit of weight, what little weight there is in these basswood. But I remove some of that simply because it just hangs on the tree better. I like it that way. It also gives me a chance to sign it on the back. Anyway, let's cut in that nose. I drew that line in to show you, but I'm actually going to put that line up here. And if you'll notice, depending on what kind of Santa you're getting, you can be a really big nose. If you don't want to do eyes, you could certainly do a no-see-em. You could do a surprise look, but keep that nose not too far away from your eye sockets on the Santa Claus. Because if you look at Santa Claus and you look at the Santa Claus that we're used to seeing, I call him the Coca-Cola Santa Claus. I think it's Thomas Nash, I can't remember exactly who that is. But he does a really happy, heavy Santa with a big nose. And I like where this nose sets. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start just scooping that out. And I'm just going to take a little bit of wood. I'm not in a hurry to do anything. I'm just having fun with it. We'll scoop out a little bit more. Get that ski slope look to the nose. And then what we'll do is we'll come back with the gouge and start to shape that eye socket. I want to give room so that I can have a fairly deep eye back in there, but I also want to leave room up here for the eyebrows, because I think a few eyebrows on Santa just kind of looks kind of neat. Looks like he's just your old grandfather you'd like to spend a whole lot of time with. All right, so to recap, we've rounded the ball, we've rounded the hat, we've shaped in the brim or the headband of that, and we've rounded the bottom of the face, and bottom of the beard. Now we've started in on the face, and that's where we'll pick it up next time when we come back to it. But that's where we're at. That's where we're going. This is what we want to end up with. So this is video number 2. I'll see you in video number 3. Thanks for watching.